Good morning, everybody. We had a lot of fireworks last night. Crystal, what's on the show today?
Absolutely. We're looking at what happened last night, what's going to happen tonight, who is winning the battle for the heart and soul of the Democratic Party. We'll explain all that today on Rising. What are you looking at?
Well, I'm taking a look at the progressive miscalculation. The progressives won the night last night. There is no question. Bernie Sanders has basically already won the Democratic nomination. He may not even win it ultimately, but when every single candidate tonight and probably tomorrow night is going to have to be asked on whether they agree with Bernie Sanders on Medicare for all, whether they agree with Bernie Sanders on fossil fuels, whether they agree with Bernie Sanders on money in politics. The man has been the original from the very beginning. Everybody is being asked whether they agree with him, even though Joe Biden is the one who's polling from first. Elizabeth Warren obviously qualifies in this category. It really was the two of them versus everybody else on the stage. So whenever you've shifted the Overton window, you've changed the discussion, you're clearly leading on issues where most of America wants to go, you're supposed to take a leg up. But unfortunately, both of them did something which is probably going to cost them the election if either ever got the nomination. Let's take a listen.
We must be a country that every day lives our values, and that means we cannot make it a crime when someone comes here.
Thank you, Senator. Just to clarify, would you decriminalize illegal border crossings?
The point is not about criminalization. That has given Donald Trump the tool to break families apart.
Health care is a human right, not a privilege. I believe that. I will fight for that. Thank you.
There it is, folks. Elizabeth Warren being the biggest proselytizer on the stage for decriminalizing the illegal border crossings. She argued against everybody else on the stage. Bernie Sanders, meanwhile, arguing forcefully that healthcare being a human right also applies to people who are illegally in our country. These people know better. They know better. Bernie Sanders called open borders a Koch brothers proposal in 2015. Elizabeth Warren, who wrote a landmark book called The Two-Income Trap about female entry into the workforce and about bargaining for wages, somehow understands why it applies to women in the workforce and not millions of illegal immigrants who enter our country per year, along with legal immigrants. Elizabeth Warren went so far as to say we should increase legal immigration last night from the 1.1 million people that we already admit per year. This makes zero economic sense. And the reason I say that they know better is it doesn't mesh with everything else they talk about. They talk about how we need to use trade policy in order to benefit American families and American workers and bring back manufacturing jobs and revitalize our unions. They talk about providing health care to the working poor and making sure that all government policy is geared towards raising the wage of a person in this country. You know what doesn't mesh with that? Inviting millions of illegal immigrants to our borders and admitting even more legal immigrants who are low-skilled labor. That is effectively what they want. These people know better, and it's very sad to see. I think, Crystal, it is a dramatic miscalculation. One of the things I also wanted to mention here is the polling on this, which is, from a purely political point of view, free health care for illegal immigrants is a 32-62 issue in the latest Marist poll, and for decriminalizing border crossings is even less popular at 27-67.
Let's put the polling aside for a minute, because we can argue about how voters actually decide who they're going to vote for, which I think we both agree is different than just going down an ideological checklist.
Nobody goes down a light item poll and says,
so
this is how
let's put that aside for a minute. I think what you miss in this is a fundamental difference between these candidates and Donald Trump about what is going on for American workers. Trump has used immigrants as a scapegoat to say if your life isn't going well, blame the brown people who are coming across the border. It's their fault. Warren, Sanders et al. Say no. It is the big corporations, and it is the fact that our government is run by these corporations that is really the problem. So those two things are not in conflict. By the way, one other
want
thing.
illegal immigrants. That's the key.
One other thing. Number one, nobody on the stage argued for open borders. Number two, you leave out the fact that everybody talked very much about, I shouldn't say everybody, Warren and Sanders talked very much about fixing those countries where people are fleeing from violence, where they would rather undertake this arduous, dangerous journey, often with their children, making those countries livable so that people can stay at home, which is what they really want.
So these are the same people who decry
out.
spending hundreds of billions in Afghanistan, and now we're also supposed to spend hundreds of billions of dollars in the Northern Triangle. At a certain point, you can provide health care to all Americans, or you can have an open border.
But
you can't have it both.
See, that's a false choice. Because,
these people want an open border. It is a de facto open border to not argue for actual asylum restrictions, which is not what they want.
Not true.
And especially to argue for look, if you come here on asylum, you're never leaving. It's a ridiculous suggestion to suggest otherwise.
Hold on.
Not a single one of these people ever get deported.
There is no doubt that the problem with our asylum system and how long it takes for people to be that is a real thing. Yes. Absolutely a real thing, and these candidates, I would want to see them address that, and I think they all want to address that. That is very different from saying we have open borders policy, which is not the case.
If you can come here and claim asylum and never leave, that's a de facto open border.
But that's not what they're arguing for.
But that is kind of what they're arguing for.
It's not what they're arguing for.
And especially whenever they want health care for illegal immigrants, they want to just catch and release everybody, they don't want to decriminalize illegal border crossing. There's no punitive measure for coming to this country illegally anymore under these administrations.
There shouldn't
and I say this as somebody who's very upset about it, because I agree with them on trade and on health care.
There shouldn't be a punishment for fleeing a place where you are no longer safe to come to a country that is supposed to be a beacon of open world.
Then you're inviting.
That is a fundamental philosophical difference.
Then we can have fun with 1.1 billion people who live in unsafe conditions across the world entering our country.
But that's a straw man. That's not what's happening.
That is effectively what would happen.
We're talking about 3 little countries. I mean, we
really with massive populations.
We say this is a crisis, please. Like this is not a problem that we could not solve easily if we spent time and attention actually trying to make these countries workable. We're up to the job, but the president likes to use it as a cudgel. He thinks it's good politics for him, and I think we'll have that debate.
Well, I've had this debate many times throughout this election, I'm sure.
Next up on Rising. Last night, as we've been discussing, the progressives and the centrists battled it out.
But how did the debate play amongst the crowd in Detroit? Hill TV's Jamal Simmons is going to update us from the field. He shares his thoughts about night 2.